And coming up in the next 60 minutes, Ghana Medical Association calls on management of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to probe reports of inadequate PPE for staff of maternity block as it condemns the use of same protective equipment for clinical examination of all patients. We'll bring you details as Joy News investigations uncover patients with suspected COVID-19 cases are being kept on the same floor as others, including pregnant women at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital.
Ebola is one of the most fearful viruses that you will never wish that.
One side, which is the west, we receive normal cases. In the east is where we have the suspected cases, which is very dangerous. But what can we say?
Also, Ebola amid COVID efforts to guard against an importation of Ebola from Guinea to Ghana. We'll hear from a virologist who says the same strategy used in fighting coronavirus cannot be used against Ebola as it is more vicious.
Ebola is one of the most fearful viruses that you will never wish that a country should have. And it's quite highly lethal. It has case fatality rate of over 60%, quite higher than COVID.
In business, employers rule out increment in minimum wage this year as a result of current economic conditions and impact of COVID-19 on their operations.
The board member of Accra Hearts of Oak, Dr. Nyahota Makula, assures supporters that issues at the board level will be addressed. More on this in 50 minutes.
Also tonight, with activism for legalization of LGBTQ rising in the country, Minister Designate for Children, Gender and Social Protection says criminality of LGBTQ is non-negotiable in Ghana.
Our laws are clear on such practices. It makes it criminal. Section 104 of the Criminal Code prohibits one from having unnatural carnal knowledge with another person.
We have details plus our responses to questions on school feeding. How about the rebranding of witches camps? That and more here on Newsnight. Please join us with your thoughts and comments. It's 055 1111997. You're watching on Facebook? Please leave your comments there as well. I am MFA Pao.
And my name is Ernest Mina. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsnight. And tonight, the Ghana Medical Association is calling on management of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to probe reports of inadequate PPE for staff of the maternity block. A Joy News expose detailed how staff of the VIP floor of the maternity block of the hospital wear same protective clothing for clinical inspection at wards, including pregnant women, and for attending to patients suspected to have COVID-19. Joy News' Kwitinate reports.
Hospital records show that on the 8th of February 2021, doctors were treating a patient suspected to have contracted COVID-19. The patient was also showing symptoms of fever, difficulty in breathing, and coughing. Clinical notes on another patient with suspected case on admission also read, and I quote, SARS-CoV-2 test to be done. Focal person contacted. He reports they have run out of logistics currently to restock as they take samples as soon as possible. End quote. Another patient with similar COVID-19 symptoms was also admitted into the ward on the 9th of February 2021. On the 5th of February 2021, another patient with symptoms such as severe anemia and pneumonia was also admitted in the same ward. Some staff of the maternity block who spoke to Joy News under condition of anonymity said the patients were on oxygen when they were brought in.
Well, some came in on oxygen, but now they're a bit better. Oxygen has been discontinued. So currently, their conditions are not so bad that we say, oh, for this patient, we're going to use hair. No. But the only problem is we are still waiting for their results.
When Joy News visited the ward, we observed that the VIP ward has been divided into two. Patients with suspected cases of COVID-19 are treated at one wing, while the regular ones are at the other end. The staff described this as extremely risky to the patients.
One side, which is the worst, we receive normal cases. In the east is where we have the suspected cases. It is very dangerous. But what can you say?
Hospital staff tell Joy News what's more dangerous is that they use one protective clothing for all clinical inspections. This is because of inadequate PPE at the maternity block.
The PPEs are not enough, so we are trying to manage. We are just trying to manage, but under normal circumstances, as soon as you enter any room, you should discard whatever you are wearing from head to toe. But when you enter one room, you move to another room with the same PPE.
The staff tell Joy News they have started taking COVID-19 medication in order to protect themselves as well as their families from contracting the virus.
I'm already on the medications, some of the medications, and I've started treating my kids as well. The whole family, they are on it.
They confirmed to us that transferring such cases to the maternity ward is because the holding bay for isolation is full.
My concern is, at least, they should make us know if really they are using the floor, maternity safe floor, as a holding bay. Well, prepare our minds psychologically. Also, if we need training. Training has to be given to us. Under normal circumstances, those caring for the COVID patients, they all undergo special training. And those of us on the floor, we don't have that training. So how are we going to cater for the patients, even if we have PPEs? It can never be done. So I think we need training to cater well for our patients. They are our patients. For that one, we can never say, yeah, we need to take care of them.
Head of Public Relations at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Mustafa Salifu, has however denied the claims that COVID-19 and non-COVID patients are being kept in the same ward. According to him, their holding bays take one suspected case at a time to prevent the spread of the virus. On claims of inadequate PPEs, Mr. Salifu said the hospital has enough for both staff and patients. Kwete Nate's report for Joy News.
And that's Kwete Nate's report. Let's go on to the phone lines now. We're joined by the Public Relations Officer of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Mustafa Salifu. Mr. Salifu, thank you very much for your time here on Newsnight. First of all, why are you using the same floor for suspected COVID-19 cases, as well as why are you using the same floor to manage suspected COVID-19 cases and regular ones?
Following the surge in cases, the hospital management gave a directive to all the departments to look for secure holding area for suspected cases. So in the case of the maternity block, that is the obstetrics and gynecology department, they decided to use the VIP ward. That is one wing of the VIP ward for these suspected COVID cases. Because in their thinking and in reality, that is one of the safest areas that you can hold suspected VIP cases, because these are separate individual rooms with all lavatory facilities, so that patients will not have to move anywhere for any services, so that they will interact with other staff or patients in the department.
Okay, so just for clarity, this holding areas that you talk about that was created on the sit floor, the VIP floor you talk about, was it created out of necessity, or that's what is designated for holding suspected COVID cases?
Yes, as I stated earlier, following the surge, the department decided that is the place, that is the best place that we can hold suspected COVID patients without exposing other patients and staff to the risk of getting infected.
So it was out of necessity. But I would want to find out if it doesn't pose any danger to those who do not have the case, because we've been told that suspected cases are as good as positive until proving otherwise.
Yeah, it does not pose any danger whatsoever to patients who are on the other wing of the ward. We have two wings, that is the west wing and then the east wing. And the department, in its wisdom, decided to use the East Wing to hold the suspected COVID cases. But I must mention that so far, all the suspected cases that have been held there, all their results have returned negative. So we have not actually not identified any positive case on the ward.
Okay, so how many of those, since you have the history of it, how many cases so far?
I can't give the number offhand, but this is a facility that holds about 6. We have about 6 cubicles, individual cubicles for these patients. And at the moment, we have just about 3 patients on suspected cases at the East Wing.
And 6 cubicles holds 1 patient each, or how many?
1 patient each.
Okay,
there are individual cubicles with their lavatory facilities for each of the patients. Okay,
paint a mental picture to those of us who have never been to this floor that you talk about, because you've talked about the West Wing and the right wing. How far wide apart are these wings, such that you can hold suspected cases on one side and non-suspected cases on the other side, such that they don't mix?
Yeah, I think this about 5. If I'm not wrong, it's about 5 to 6 meters apart. That is the dividing area between the 2 wings.
5 meters, you say?
Between 5 and 6 meters. And I haven't taken the exact measurement of it to just give you an accurate distance between the 2 wings.
And they have separate medical practitioners attending to each, or they have the same attending to the right wing and the left wing?
Yeah, we let me say that we do not have, or any facility will not boast of sufficient medical personnel that they will divide and then say these are medical staff for suspected COVID cases, and then these are the important thing is that if you gown your PPE, you get all the you observe all the safety protocols, you can move from one patient to the other without necessarily saying that these are doctors for COVID cases and then these are doctors for non-COVID patients.
Which is why it is interesting that some of your nurses are using the same PPE to attend to the regular patients and these patients who are suspected to have COVID. How is that?
If you don a PPE, you don't actually need to take off your PPE from one after seeing one patient and moving to the other. You can only take off your gloves. That is what we are made to understand. You can take off your gloves and
Mr.
sanitize.
Salvo, I'm sorry, but these
are and put on your new gloves. You can move on to see the next patient.
I'm sorry, these are patients who are suspected to have COVID-19. Now, if you have the same medical practitioners, be it doctors or nurses attending to them, it is expected that they try as much as they can not to infect the other patients who are not there because they are suspected to have COVID-19. They have a responsibility of protecting them. Removing the gloves, you think, is enough protection, is enough measure to take in order to protect those on the other wing?
And themselves as well.
Yeah, these are professionals who have been trained over the years, and then they observe all the required safety protocols, and they will not willfully engage in any activity that will expose them and their patients to infections.
But these professionals are the ones complaining.
They know what they are doing, and what they are doing is best practice, and then they know their patients are safe, and they themselves are safe. They and their families are also safe. Mind you, this infection is not only a danger to the patients and their relatives, but also to the staff as well.
Of course,
so
and those who interacted with us
to protect themselves and to protect their patients.
It's interesting that you raised the issue about training, and I want to find out from you, because you mentioned that they ought to know. But did we give them any form of training aside the senior medical officers that you talk about? The nurses at that level that are supposed to handle these suspected cases and non-suspected cases, because it's a maternity and gynae and obstetric department. Have they been trained to handle suspected COVID-19 cases?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. You know, as part of their basic training, as a caregiver, as a health worker, you are taking through basic infection prevention controls. But following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the hospital organized training that is actually ongoing. They train and retrain staff across the hospital. So it is rather surprising that to hear that some staff members have not gone through. They are claiming that they actually don't know how to protect themselves
but Mr. Salifu, you just said
themselves and their patients to danger.
Mr. Salifu, you just said that the training is ongoing. So probably those nurses specifically have not been trained. You just said that the training is ongoing.
Can you say that again?
You just said that the training is ongoing. It means that you have not finished training everybody. Could it be that those nurses
what
specifically...
What I said was that we are training and retraining. It means it's continuous. Sometimes you have to do refreshers to remind people on the importance of observing the safety protocols. And that is what the training is all about. Otherwise, we would have decided that it's sufficient that the training they were giving while they were in school is okay. But in our wisdom, we thought it wise that staff members must be taken through the training.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about the training. At least those of us listening would want to understand. Since the training is still ongoing, you have some form of knowledge, basic knowledge, like we talk about, in handling suspected cases. What is the protocol? What kind of training do you give those who are supposed to be handling the cases?
Yeah, the training is basically about the observing the safety protocols so that you protect your patient and protect yourself. It's also about donning the use of the PPE, which is also very
for
critical.
A suspected case, for instance, as part of the training, what kind of PPE? We know that there are stages. What kind of PPE as a frontliner? Handling the maternity and gynae and obstetrics department, for instance, what kind of PPE are you supposed to don when you are dealing with suspected cases, for instance?
It depends on the level of care that we are about to provide. If it's just a matter of going to interact with the patient, you may use a coverall, which is not a full PPE. If it's, you are going to a theater to operate on suspected case, there's also another level of PPE that you must use. So these are the important things that staff members are exposed to.
But you haven't given me the specific. You've talked about the overall. Apart from that, that's the only thing you're supposed to wear at that department.
Overall, there are other gadgets that go with it, like the gloves, how you put on the gloves, how you take off the gloves, how you put on your face shield, and all of that. So the training covers all of those areas.
So earlier you mentioned that it's just gloves and maybe mask. That's all they have to wear at that point, right?
No, if you actually want us to talk about the content of the training.
I'm not talking about the training at this point. I'm asking about the PPE you're supposed to don at that level, because most of the patients that go to that department are supposed to be pregnant women and those seeking gynae attention. So they are not aware that most of them coming there may be a suspected case or not. So those who are supposed to deal with them at first hand, what kind of protection do they have?
The philosophy that we have here is that any patient is a potential COVID-19 positive case. So any staff who are supposed to see such patients are supposed to take the basic precautionary measures before they see them, so that they don't expose their patients to danger, and they also don't expose themselves.
And the basic precaution consists of what?
It consists of at least basic putting on your gloves, observing the social distance between you and the patient, and so on and so forth.
So it's just your gloves that you have to wear. You don't need a mask. You don't need anything else.
Can you say that again?
I'm saying it's only the gloves that you have to wear, nothing else?
Not that. It's not only the gloves that you wear. It's important to understand that depending on the level of care that you are providing, there are the set of PPEs that you have to use. So if somebody is coming basically for consultations, there is a level of PPEs that they have to use. If somebody is going into the theater, if you are going to have direct contact with the patient, there are the required PPEs that you have to use.
And briefly and finally, Mr. Mustafa, we have enough available for these personnel at that, department, since they will have to be treating suspected or, attending to suspected cases and non-suspected cases as well. Do we have enough?
During my visit to the department today, we went round and then we've seen that we have adequate stock of PPEs at the department, and we went further to the sixth floor to see, and then they have sufficient for the day.
Okay.
And as and when they are running out, we have the reorder level. They trigger the necessary mechanism so that adequate supplies are supplied are given to the department.
So one thing that this story brings to light is the fact that there's some form of anxiety amongst your workers. Is there any particular measure you're putting in place going forward to ensure that there's some calm amongst your workers?
It's interesting you say that. Everybody takes this disease very seriously, and then the management takes it very, very serious. So management spares no effort to make sure that we have adequate PPEs for the use of our staff. The ministry has been so helpful in this effort. We have had support from corporate organizations and philanthropic individuals. So we want to use this opportunity to thank them and to say that the fight is not over. We'll still require their support so that together we can defeat this pandemic.
We're grateful for your time, Mr. Mustafa Salifu is the PRO of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Thank you indeed for your time. And
earlier, before you spoke to the Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Titus Bayo. He also raised a number of concerns, some of which have been responded to by Salifu, but there are others, specifically about the training. Let's listen to Dr. Bayo make the point.
We expect that by now all workers, healthcare workers, should have had sufficient training to handle COVID case. And so if the nurses have deficiencies or the healthcare workers that have deficiencies in training, it's something management should look at and address immediately. I am aware that at the beginning they were all taking through how to don and doff PPEs. Maybe people didn't pay a lot of attention because they were not getting cases then. And those at the treatment centers are those who were getting cases then. But I do know that there was training of trainers at the national level, at regional level, and it's supposed to be decentralized to every hospital. I think there are some gaps, and so as long as one person feels incapable of taking care of the COVID patient, they need to have retraining, and that thing must be addressed immediately. And I think management must take that very seriously. Reason being that looking at the number of cases that are coming up, we cannot expect that only the treatment centers will be handling cases. So any health worker who is not sufficiently trained should be given the opportunity to be trained well, so that they'll be comfortable and confident to handle.
That is Dr. Titus Bay, Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. And it's important, for that remind ourselves of the figures and where we are in the fight against COVID-19. My colleague Maxwell Adoda joins us in the studio with an update of the figures and also a breakdown to help us understand where we are. Especially this year, we've seen that the UK strain, we're told, has become very dominant, and we know how deadly that variant is. Maxwell, tell us, what are the figures looking like?
Well, Enes, so this is what is giving the cause for concern. The death toll as at yesterday afternoon was 542. This was in the afternoon, and then in the evening, by evening, it had changed to 555. That was an increase of 13. And then today, it changed to 561, an increase of 6. So that was just yesterday, and then today the death toll keeps rising. Now, on the face of it, on the face value, from March to December 2020, from March when we recorded our first cases, to December 2020, we had 335 people dying of coronavirus, 335, the death toll. Now, that was as at December 27, 2020. That is for the period of 9 months. Now, fast forward to 2021, as at today, we have 7,866 active cases, new cases 702, and a death toll of 561. Now, in the president's last address on the 31st January 2020, he stated that as at Friday 29th January, the death toll was 416. 416. Now the death toll is 561. So on the face of it, in 17 days after the president spoke, we have 145 more people dying.
145.
Yeah, within 17 days, we have 145 more people dying. Now, we've done 48 days in the new year.
Okay.
48 days. From March to December 2020, we had 335 deaths. So, 561 minus 335, we're looking at from January to February 17th, how many deaths in 48 days?
What's the figure?
We have 226 deaths since the year started.
226.
226.
This is from January 1 till date.
Exactly.
But in the whole of last year, that's from March to December,
We had 335.
335.
Yeah.
And just for January and, 2 weeks
February.
in February,
Exactly.
we're doing 200.
226.
Wow.
226. So on the face of it, that should be about 4 people dying daily now. Yeah, that's what it is. And that's what is giving cause, for concern for a lot of people. But of course, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaji, has been responding to this analysis some weeks ago when he spoke during a press conference at the Information Ministry.
The total number of deaths, as was mentioned, you see, you are looking at the whole of the year when we started from the 12th of March with 2 cases. But if you look at the June, July, August, when we had the high increase, of course, the total number of deaths gone up. We started the year with an increasing number of cases. And so we will need to compare it appropriately within the various spikes to see what is happening. It is hoped that as the numbers come down, the number who are ill will come down, and the number will come. Maybe I also mentioned that, look, people should apply the most appropriate health-seeking behavior. People are staying home, trying all kinds of remedies, and not reporting early. And that is causing, that's something that we hope that the media will also help us carry out that. Please seek care early. Don't go online, don't go and read social media and do all manner of things. Because in COVID, your situation can be stable. You can change in the next 1 hour. And so observation extremely important that you seek care early. The total number of cases, active cases, about 6,938 now, under the most current figure was just published just when we were coming here. And the death has increased to about 482 so far, 82.
Well, so he spoke like 2 weeks or so ago,
yeah.
and today the death rate is, or the death toll is 561. And you speak to about everybody you speak to, maybe 5 out of 10 people, 1 person knows someone who has died.
Yes.
Out of COVID-19.
I think that we all can now put some faces to the figures now. Previously it sounded very distant and almost insignificant. Right now it's getting very close, and almost everybody you speak to knows of somebody who has died of COVID-19. We need to mask up and observe all the safety protocols. COVID is real.
Well, let's do George Riafe now at this point. George, what's in business?
There's some interesting development on the global scene. If you want to attribute it to the vaccine, then we pray that it gets in here early. And the last time that the WHO actually held a press conference, they said that for the 5th consecutive time, we are seeing a significant drop in the global cases across the world. So from about 5 million active cases to about 2 million. Even if you go to US as well, if you look at the data as well, it is actually slowing in terms of the mortality rate and all the rest. If you look at the numbers in Israel as well, they've also slowed down the mortality rate and cases as well. And some of them are linking it to the development or the deployment of the vaccine. So if these numbers globally are anything to go by in terms of the effectiveness or efficacy of these vaccines, then we pray that these vaccines come in quick to help us slow the death rate as well. But we also praying against Ebola, Guinea.
We have news on that as well, because there's a directive from the Ghana Health Service, issues about our borders and its porosity. We'll be looking at it.
And it's killed
as
5
well.
people already in Guinea.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Well, for more bad news for you when you come to the economy and business, because employers are saying that it might be difficult to actually review the minimum wage for this year because of how COVID has affected the operations. I remember that the National Tripartite Committee will be very soon be meeting to try and look at the possibility of increasing minimum wage, and it looks like that would not be possible for this year. So I'll be telling you more on that one, MFI. And also in business, the 2021 budget likely to be presented by the end of March, following Finance Minister designate a 2-week medical review in U.S. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials. And, of course, Allianz Insurance.
That's the sound of my heart breaking the first time I said I wanted to be a cassava farmer. Thank you. But this was when I graduated with first class honors in agriculture. Oh, my first harvester. The last harvester I ordered online. That's people seeing my fresh cassava page on Facebook and Instagram. And endless number of calls for my quick fufu all year round.
There are beautiful connections that bridge humble todays to amazing tomorrows on Ghana's #1 network, everywhere you go.
Our 130-year journey at Allianz has seen our operations growing to cover over 92 million Allianz customers in over 70 countries worldwide. Allianz Life Insurance Ghana, a subsidiary of Allianz Group, has put together a wide range of insurance packages to suit the pockets of every Ghanaian individual, family, group, corporate body, as well as their employees. Kindly call us on 030-2267-892 or 059-144-9686 or visit our website www.allianz-gh.com for more enquiries. Allianz Life, we secure your future.
Hey! Sir? Wow. Why is everyone speechless? Because DSTV is offering you the same mind-blowing entertainment at a fraction of the price. Huh? For a limited time only, get an HD decoder, dish and installation, plus 1 month of DSTV access, cut down from 229 Ghana cedis to just 199 Ghana cedis. That's ridiculous. Before it's too late, get the best for even less with DSTV. SMS 1731. This is your moment.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, don't expect an increase in the national daily minimum wage. Now, that is if business owners that make up the membership of the Ghana Employers Association should have their way. We have details in the following Business Desk report.
According to some of these big firms in the country, looking at how a majority of businesses have been affected badly by the first COVID-19 wave, most of them are currently not in good financial standing to review salaries this year. Joy Business gathers that owners of these businesses will carry the concerns to their mother association, which is the Ghana Employers Association. They are hoping that these views will be factored or acknowledged when the National Tripartite Committee meets the national daily minimum wage on salary negotiation in the coming weeks. Some of these employers argue that it will not be fair for government and organized labor to push for any increase for 2021, stressing that they may struggle to honor the payment of the wages. The national daily minimum wage currently stands at 11 cedis 82 pesos after it was increased by 11%. The minimum wage often acts as a benchmark for salary negotiations both in the private sector and public sector. Based on what Joy Business has picked up, it's likely that workers in the private sector will not witness any increase in their salaries this year. Some of these employers have told Joy Business the only option now is for them to downsize if they have to increase wages to the levels that can be described as living wage.
And that is a Business Desk report. In a related development, Employment and Labor Relations Minister Designate Ignatius Bafwewa is warning of some challenging times for the sector because of COVID-19. He disclosed this when he appeared before Parliament's Appointment Committee today.
The re-emergence of COVID is certainly a threat because I cannot tell how long COVID is going to live with us. But if the situation should worsen, then, Honorable Chair, you agree with me that it may not be possible for us to do things the normal way that we do. And the consequence of that is that it is going to impact on work.
And that is the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations designate Ignatius Bafuewu. And for the warnings that the Minister has already given some signals as about the challenging times for us in the coming months because of COVID-19. Now, the London-based Economist Intelligence Unit, EIU, is raising some concerns about the country's ability to pay back its debts on time in the coming months. Now, this was captured in its latest country report on Ghana. There is more in the following Business Desk report.
According to the report, Ghana's sovereignty risk, which measures the ability of the country to meet its obligations on time, has reduced marginally due to what the Economist Intelligence Unit says is due to a decline in Ghana's foreign reserves. The unit in the report also claims that the foreign reserves, for instance, dropped by 14% over the last 6 months to the third quarter of last year, maintaining that it now covers a smaller share of Ghana's external financing requirements. But despite raising this concern, the London-based unit does not think that Ghana will struggle to raise a targeted $5 billion this year. The EIU was of the view that despite all issues raised, it does not think it will downgrade Ghana's sovereignty risk because it is quite optimistic about the recovery of the economy.
That is a Business Desk report. Now, this year's full year budget is likely to be presented by the end of next month. Now, this is what we are picking up from government sources. It follows a decision by Finance Minister designate Ken Ofori-Atta to seek medical review in US for post-COVID-19 complications. Now, the presentation, Joy Business Understand, should have come on in the first week of March, subject to Parliament approval of the set date as well as its vetting being completed in Parliament. Joy Business understands that the team actually has gotten very far in terms of the team that is working on this budget has gotten very far in terms of the necessary structures and a bit that would actually help with them going ahead whilst they wait for Cabinet approval with respect to the fiscal and policy direction. In a related development, the President's special representative at the Ministry of Finance that have been appointed recently, that is Charles Edubuayin, would actually help oversee as in day-to-day instructions of the ministry and also approvals, as well as signing some expenditure to help with government running business in terms of for the first 3 months of this year. To other stories, the Chief Operating Officer of Skeptra Global, a real estate company at Karen Evans Helm, is calling on government to provide incentives to private developers to help bridge the gap in the housing deficit in the country. According to her, government must look to regularizing land acquisition, including tax incentives to attract private investors into the sector. She spoke to Joy Business during the launch of the Seedgate Estate to contribute its efforts in addressing the housing needs in the country.
If the cost price of the things that we are using to produce these houses can be reduced by tax rebates, by duty rebates, and so on and so forth, by land being easy to acquire so that you don't have to pay for the same land 2 times, 3 times, then we can begin to drive the cost down. Because really, our vision is that even though our house is selling for 87,000, our vision is that over time you will actually be able to drop it lower than that, so that you have young people coming these days. They are trying hard, but sometimes the trying is what you have on the market. It's still a little beyond them. So our vision is that over time we'll push it even further from the $87,000 to come lower than that, so that we can even capture and serve more younger people.
Karen Evans-Ham is the Chief Operating Officer at Skeptra Global, that is a real estate company. To the stock market, the market actually was flat with no price. All for business on Newsnight. So, we're looking forward to these vaccines despite all the conspiracy theories that are on the internet about it, the side effects and all those things.
Of course, we get details on that. Thank you very much, George. Let's take some of your comments that you've sent in via WhatsApp. We have one from Ernest in Taifa. He says the management of Kolebu Teaching Hospital should tread cautiously. The patients at each ward are state assets and their healthcare is paramount. COVID-19 is dangerous, he says.
This one from Sika Togo from East Legon says, good evening, MFN Ernest. I find it disturbing and distasteful that mortuary workers are not given enough briefing on persons who may have died of COVID-19 before conveying the bodies to the morgue.
AU Farouk says, from my observation, some of the nominees do not deserve to be approved by the appointments committee. Their line of answering the questions were not encouraging at all. Lincoln in Akwetiman says the statistical service is not helping us. How can a minister put out such figures when companies are folding up on daily basis?
And Yao in Achimota says, good evening, Newsnight team. The way and manner our leaders churn out figures in this country leaves much to be desired. The one asking and the one answering. Okay. So let me leave it right there. And Kofi Seidu says the employment figures churned out by the Labour Minister designate is questionable. The appointments committee should let him provide the evidence to support the figures before his approval. And that's on Top Story today.
And that's the issue about the 3 million jobs created so far. I'll take you to that appointments committee sitting shortly. The one that just passed as the shortest in the history of these appointments committee for this year.
Was it?
And Adjoseph was sitting very, very short.
Okay.
Lasted less than 2 hours, I should say. We'll get into it. There were issues about LGBTQ. She insists that, of course, it's a criminal, it's non-negotiable in Ghana, and also been talking about children, gender, and social protection. Also talking about rebranding of the witches' camp. I have more on that. But first, let's talk about Ebola. Because the West African country Guinea faces a big hurdle, an Ebola outbreak amid a coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 is deadly, but Ebola is deadlier. The situation has promoted calls for Ghana to guard against an importation of the virus. Former ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee, James Galga, is calling for increased surveillance along Ghana's borders following a resurgence of the Ebola virus in Guinea.
And we'll hear from him shortly, but let's first listen to a virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, Dr. Michael Owusu. He's also talking about surveillance, but also equipping the laboratories to be able to deal with this issue.
Ebola is one of the most fearful viruses that you will never wish that a country should have. Ebola belongs to a different family compared to the COVID that we have currently. It belongs to the family of viral hemorrhagic fever virus, and it's quite highly lethal. Has case fatality rate of over 60%, quite higher than what we do for COVID. The two viruses have different transmission pathways. One, the COVID is through the nasal respiratory portal, through droplets, but this is through body fluids contact. So the strategy for dealing with COVID is not the same strategy that you use to deal with Ebola, because they are different streams. So if you have to target Ebola, then you have to increase surveillance, ensure that root cause like funerals, bodies, even dead bodies from Ebola patients have high transmission level compared to people who die of COVID. And if somebody dies of COVID, the rate of transmission is not that much high. We don't step up our surveillance, then it's possible that you could have some border inflows. This could put us at risk. I think the Ghana government has done well by putting out the alerts for people in the health facilities to already look out for possible signs and symptoms of this in case it comes in. But as I said, it is also good that we begin to look strategically from the testing level, which labs will be involved in looking out for this virus, in testing for this, and adequately equip them. So in case you have a suspected illness, we can have separate labs which are able to target this highly pathogenic lethal virus, quickly identify them, and enable us contain it. So if you contain it early, you can deal with it for it not to spread.
So that's Dr. Michael Owusu, virologist at the KCCR, speaking on how we should be preparing to deal with Ebola and also actually prevent it from entering into the country. But the Ghana Health Service has reacted to this development within the sub-region. It issued a statement today, and head of our health desk, Fred Smith, has details of that statement.
The Ghana Health Service in the alert is asking all regions, districts and health facilities to initiate preparedness and response plans, port health units at all border posts, particularly in the western border and all landing beaches have also been told to heighten surveillance. It adds that Ebola virus disease is highly fatal and advised all persons in Ghana to avoid contact with bloody fluids such as urine, saliva, sweat, feces, vomit, breast milk, and semen of people who show any of the Ebola symptoms, which are fever, headache, fatigue, muscle pain, unexplained bleeding from the nose, gums, vagina, skin, or eyes.
Fred Smith there, head of our health desk.
Let's go to Parliament now, shall we? Our laws are clear on homosexuality and will remain criminal. Minister Designate for Children, Gender and Social Protection, Sarah Adjoa-Safo, has declared as some within the country continue to call for the decriminalization of the act. Responding to questions from members of Parliament Appointments Committee, the Dom Kwabenya MP added that the act is frowned upon in the country's culture and that will take a stand against its legalization.
Now, a new office has been opened in the country to promote LGBTQ activities and the rights for those who indulge in it, with some who are against the act calling on government to take a stronger stance against such activism. Now, but today, Sarah Adjoa-Safo says she strongly stands against a decriminalization of the act. Listen.
The issue of LGBT is an issue that, when mentioned, it creates some controversy. But what I want to say is that our laws are clear on such practices. It makes it criminal. Section 104 of the Criminal Code prohibits one from having unnatural carnal knowledge with another person. So on the issue of its criminality, it is non-negotiable. On the issue of our cultural acceptance and norms to these practices are also frowned upon. And so for me, these are two distinct clarity on the matter, and that is what I strongly stand for.
They were a very short session, and there were other issues that came up very interesting. But let's talk about the school feeding program.
Yeah.
She says she will take firm actions to resolve it.
School feeding program, as one of the social interventions or social protection programs, has a purpose for which it was introduced, which is also to make sure that we have our children served meals in school, hot meals, to keep them in school, more especially with the needy students. Mr. Chair, we must admit as a country that the intention and purpose for this scheme is good, but we have some lapses within it that we ought to look at as a nation and as a parliament and as the Gender Committee of Parliament. When I'm given the nod, I will engage this House and the committee as well to see how these lapses can be streamlined properly. Be it NPP, NDC, we all have to accept that there are challenges. Sometimes there are intermediaries, even in between the caterers, which compromises even on the quality of food that is being served to these children, which is not the ultimate purpose for introducing the scheme. So when I'm giving the nod, I'll engage further and we'll all streamline things to make it better.
So that's her take on school feeding, but the issue of which camps will not go, and that's the responsibility of her ministry as well. She talked about rebranding, and the minority leader, Haruna Idris, we wanted to know exactly what she meant by rebranding. Listen.
If I'm giving the nod, what I will first do is to engage and visit some of the camps and engage these alleged witches. I will further engage the traditional leaders and opinion leaders in these areas to get a very clear picture of what indeed ought to be done. That is not to say that the ministry hasn't done anything. I chanced on some document which indicated that in Kambaga, which camp, for instance, there are 600 inmates. when they were engaged, only one was prepared to come back home. So I believe that a rebranding of these camps, because as far as the women are concerned, they have found family in these camps. And so I would engage them further.
Minister nominee, a rebranding of the camp, which is camp. So your policy will be to rebrand them.
I know that
it has to do with, you have a background in human rights. It has to do with infractions of human rights, that they are being held hostage because of some people's cultural and social beliefs. So when you use the word rebrand, are you going to promote the detention of supposed witches?
Mr. Chair, definitely not. I indicated that attempts to withdraw these women has proven difficult in the past. That is why I believe that another and a novel approach to dealing with the matter would be more prudent. So if they see it as homes and the ministry supports them with the necessary social amenities that is expected of a state, they are given food, they are put on leave, and they are given clothing.
So that's the minister designates for gender social, children and social protection. Rebranding. Hans Bensando is here, and Hans, you also have issues with the use of the word rebranding.
Yeah, I mean, it will be rebranded, but it will still remain a witches camp.
But she
no, but you heard it towards the latter part.
Yes, I did.
That it should be home. You remember that some of them didn't want to go back to the communities. Exactly.
But the status as a witch camp will not change. It will only be rebranded.
It will be changed into a home. That's what she says.
Okay. Which home?
No, please.
What's in sports? What's in sports, Hans?
Well, so fans of Accra Hearts of Folk today stormed the club secretariat to demonstrate against the club's hierarchy following the shock resignation of head coach Costa Papic and almost all the technical team members. The supporters who stormed the club secretariat at the Braka allegedly blocked staff from entering their offices while making serious demands, which they expect to be addressed immediately by the leadership of the club. In response, board member of Heart of Folk, Dr. Nyao Tamaklo, has assured the supporters that arrangements have been made to hold a general meeting in June to address issues at the board level.
The board wishes to inform all supporters and especially shareholders that all arrangements are far advanced to hold an annual general meeting in June, where issues such as reconstitution of the board will be addressed. Shareholders are therefore being advised to take note and make sure they attend and participate in the decision-making process. The board also wishes to inform supporters that it intends to make a rights issue of shares immediately after the AGM to enable those holding shares buy more shares and also new investors to buy.
Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo is a board member of Accra Hearts of Folk, and their Champions League games tonight. Games kick off at 8 p.m. Porto take on Juventus. Sevilla, they take on Borussia Dortmund. That's your sports.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much, Hans.
Now let's talk about security. The Inspector General of Police, James Opon-Bueno, has promised more support for the Upper East Regional Police Command to help clamp down on armed robbery in that region. Now the IGP was speaking to journalists at Pusu Namongo near Pualugu in the Talensi district, where he is currently on a working visit. Now recent armed robbery attacks there and parts of the Bongo district as well as Bolgatanga have left many people in fear amid calls for the removal of the regional police commander, but the IGP assured that security will be beefed up.
Well, I'm here in the region to look at the strategy that the regional command is using to respond to the recent robberies that have occurred. I've been to two other locations where we have had recent robberies, and I'm going to sit down with them. I didn't come alone. I came with the Director General of Operations and his deputy, as well as some other senior officers from the police headquarters. We're going to sit down with them and re-strategize and see what measures to put in place to ensure that this did not occur. since my arrival, I have noticed that they have put some measures in place to stem the tide or to prevent the robberies and other crimes from occurring. I will sit down with them again and then we'll review those plans and then we'll see what assistance we can give them to ensure that the crimes do not occur again. I can assure the general public that we're doing whatever we can and we'll go to whatever length to ensure that the public is made safe.
General of Police James Sopom Bueno and my colleague Albert Sorry, so with the team that was traveling with the IGP. He joins us on the line. So Albert, it's not just the IGP that spoke, but I want to find out if he's still in the region.
He was set to meet with the regional police command before he will depart later today. So he should be out of Bolga at the moment.
Okay, so in his company too was the Director of Public Affairs of the Police Service, Superintendent Sheila Beye Bokman, and she spoke specifically to the attacks on tomato sellers and truck drivers. What did she say?
Yes, so you realize that the tomato sellers who go to Burkina Faso to buy tomato and come to Ghana to sell have been the target for these robbers who attack them on the highway. So one of the things the police command is doing is to provide patrols to escort them anytime they are traveling. So she basically gave us the details of that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my colleague Albert Sorry. And just before we go, the 2020 NDC presidential candidate John Dramani Mahama says the Supreme Court judges hearing his election petition have committed fundamental errors of law. And now he says this is his assessment of the court's decision on February 11 that indicated that it could not compel EC chairperson Jean Mensah to testify. Mr. Mahama's lawyers have found fresh documents seeking to halt any hearing of the case till the court reviews its directive on Jean Mensah not testifying. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has more.
The petitioner in this application has not given us.
On Wednesday, the Apex Court for the fourth time ruled against Mr. Mohammed's lawyers on a major request, like in the interrogatories review, inspection of documents and Jean Mensah testifying rulings. It was a unanimous decision.
We accordingly refute the application and proceed without any hesitation to dismiss him.
Mr. Mohammed's lawyers are unhappy.
To reduce the petition into a single issue petition is rather unfortunate and smacks of a predetermined agenda to rule against the petitioner in this matter.
President Akufo-Addo's side disagree.
When you lose an application because it is not grounded in law, then you come here and literally poison the minds of the public and make claims that they may be having a predetermined agenda. That's scandalous of the courts.
Mr. Mahama has since filed two applications. One is asking that the court halt its proceedings till it deals with a second application, which is asking for a review of the decision that Jean Mensah cannot be compelled to testify. His lawyers argue the judges committed an error of law by not paying attention to the Evidence Act. They explained by filing a witness statement she had elected to testify and should have been compelled to do so. The lawyers say this has resulted in a miscarriage of justice that should be remedied.
Joseph Akable filed that report, and of course we know that the court will sit tomorrow. Per their directive, the party should have filed their final addresses by now, and then this application is also outstanding.
Thank you so much for listening to the news. Remember to brush your teeth with Pepsodent, because every smile matters. And up next is Strong and Sassy with Inimwa Inimado, and we're talking full disclosure. Will you tell it all? Is the question.
Will you?
Day. Yes, I will. Why keep secrets?
Okay. All right, so let's wait for the ladies on Strong and Sassy. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Ernest Mena. I did it with MFR Power.